Well, in case you've been living under a rock for the last week or so, the Fees Must Fall movement has grown, and in almost 2 weeks, from a University of Witwatersrand movement to a national movement, including nearly 17 institutions of higher learning in South Africa. Yesterday, students stormed Parliament. Some were arrested and since been released with a warning. Others have been charged with criminal offences. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we discuss the implication of the possibility, if at all possible, of free universities and also the financial health of South African students with Nthato Selebi from Thuthuka Bursary Fund. Godfrey Maja is chairperson of the Black Management Forum student chapter, and in Cape Town, Benay from Intelligent Debt Management Group. Benay, let's start with you in Cape Town this evening. Do we have any conclusive statistics as to the personal debt levels of South African students?
Thank you, Bruce, for having me. You know, it's interesting you would ask this question because over the last 3 years, we've seen the number of people who come to Debtbusters, our main debt management company, who are under the age of 25. It's gone from 10 to 26%. That's just in 3 years. You know, while we don't have specific statistics on students, because we work with a small number of them, ultimately what we can say is every month we get increasing number of queries of people calling us and looking for student loans or ways to get out of student loans or some other remedy. We also see that on average, people used to come to us where they would need 80% of their net income to pay for debt. Now they need 109% of their net income to pay for debt. So you can imagine the seriously escalating levels of debt are a serious concern for many people, including students.
Godfrey Maja from the BMF, does this reflect what you guys are experiencing?
True. Let's not only talk about the debt that the existing mechanisms of funding students are actually getting the students into, but let's talk about the reality that even prior to the few that get this assistance, you have got multitudes of students or potential students out there. You have talent sitting outside the mainstream higher learning terrain because they cannot afford. It starts with your registration fees that are very steep. Then the entire cost for the year just for one student is at such a point that even when you do give the student financial aid through the existing NSFAS, for example, in South Africa, you still indebt this student automatically before they can even go into the labor market, before they can even go into the world of insurance, of car premiums, of wills, and all these other costs that they're going to incur. The other debt that's already waiting for them outside, because these are students who come from communities and the type of backgrounds where it is guaranteed that in order for them to make a living post-tertiary, they must get into debt. So you're already giving them
the students leave with huge debt burdens. It's not particular to South Africa. Perhaps what is particular to South Africa is the enormous poverty from which many of the students do come from, who are excluded on financial grounds, which is where Thuthuka comes in then, Nthato. I mean, you must have a huge burden of responsibility. More applications, I'm sure, than money to hand out.
It is massive, Bruce, and I think on average we receive about 4,000 applications a year for approximately 300 bursaries. And that would obviously fluctuate from year to year depending on the support we receive from corporates and from government, etc. But the pressure is massive to say, how do we balance what we need to do in terms of transforming our profession, while at the same time understanding that that transformation is what's going to make an impact in terms of generational situations, breaking poverty, etc. So it is a whole lot of pressure.
I mean, 300 bursaries is a drop in an ocean of desperate need. Lots of proposals over the last couple of days as to how we could do this better. We've got Bladen Zamandi goes, nope, there's no money. Sorry, we'll cap fees at 6%. You're lucky it's only 6%. In real terms, it's not even an increase because inflation's running at 6% anyway. You're lucky. The students replied with some vigour yesterday as the Finance Minister was standing up in Parliament delivering a medium-term budget policy statement in which he then announced a 10% increase for the cost of civil servants. Now, how is that going to stick, Godfrey, in the throats of students?
Look, these are students who haven't necessarily gained this momentum in the past few weeks, as we have seen in the media. This is the type of frustration that has been boiling over years, as Thuthuka would know, that those students that never make it into your bursary fund, where do they go to? There's many other bursary funds that will tell you that they don't take in as much as they would love to, and all those people are going into the world of frustration that we have seen boiling in the past few weeks. This is just a signal to government, to labor, to business, and everyone in South Africa that perhaps we should consider unconventional methods of dealing with the problem. We cannot run business as usual. We cannot have these very minimal interventions that in the broader picture don't actually have any impact on the agenda for transformation, for instance. You understand?
But the corporate sector will say, okay, we pay 28% corporate tax rate. We already pay skills development levies. We already donate money through the SETAs. We're obliged to do so. The fact that the money is inefficiently spent is not our fault. So does the buck then stop at the door of government as a whole?
I think the buck stops with us as a society.
That's too easy, though, because that doesn't create solutions.
I know it sounds a bit easy, Bruce, but I think if you look, for instance, at the model that the Thuthuka Bursary Fund has, it has taken hands with universities, with corporates, and with government, and also ensures that students are held accountable for the investment that's made on them. So I think when you look at the model that we have in trying to address this very massive challenge, which doesn't just start now, is that you have to look at innovative solutions. And for us, I think from where we sit, the program that we have and the model that we have is the innovative solution, or one of the innovative solutions that have to be taken on board.
But you need to multiply it by 1,000 to have any real impact there.
And I think you can. I think in our current state, we have to be brave. The accounting profession 11 years ago was brave and said, you know what? We have to stop talking and we have to actually put our money where our mouths are in terms of transformation. So I think all the other professions also must be challenged in the same manner to say, stop talking, stop making yourself feel good, and do something about it by really going through the pains. Right now, the accounting profession is beginning to reap the rewards of the pains they felt 10 years ago.
Okay, so think differently, corporates, but also what about government cutting its cloth according to what it's got? Suggestions from the Institute of Race Relations yesterday that what we should do is take some of that SETA money. What we should do is take 25% of the defence budget. What we should do is cut the civil service bill by 5%. And already we will go a very long way to addressing the needs of the students. These aren't big requirements on the fiscus, are they, Godfrey?
We have actually agreed in our statement earlier today to some of those solutions. From where we stand as the BMF student chapter, we don't think these minimal interventions will make a serious impact, like he just said that you will need to multiply that by 1,000. It needs to be a countrywide, conscious decision that we are taking an unconventional route. We are declaring higher education up to undergraduate level free for those deserving students. This education is free in relation to the student. Yet we do know economically that someone has to pay something somewhere. That is where your equity equivalents come in. Let's redirect how we take money out of corporate. Let's channel it towards education. Let's see education not as a cost, not as part of the expenditure on the books of government, but let's see it as an investment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that point.
Yeah.
What about government saying, all right, we've got it in the medical schools right now. If you go and you get a medical degree, they call it the Zuma year, 1 year of public service afterwards. How about if you want to go and do an accounting degree, the government will pay for it. But at the end of that year, you will give us a year, at the end of your degree, you give us a year in municipalities, you give us a year in SARS, you give us a year in public service. So you can pay for your education, or you can take a loan from NSFAS. They need a new acronym. Sizwe Xasana is the chairman of the National Student Funding Organisation. But there's got to be a way of paying back the money, to coin a phrase.
To be honest with you, I think within the Thuthuka students in particular, and I think students broadly, there is no challenge with paying back. And I think students understand that it's not about a free ride. It's about trying to understand that we do come from a history of serious imbalances, and that those imbalances are only going to be corrected through education, etc. But we need to then do something unconventional to make sure that access, and once one has access, that the burden is lightened. So I think in the main, and I don't want to purport to speak on behalf of students, but those that I interact with on a daily basis have no challenge with giving back. They do understand that they have a responsibility to giving back.
No, and it is good. Benay, let me wrap up with you in Cape Town. I mean, I was just watching the Finance Minister's medium-term budget policy statement with this eye and watching another television with this eye to see what was happening outside as MPs shuffled uncomfortably in their seats with the sound of stun grenades going outside, going off outside of the parliamentary precinct. But I looked at the Finance Minister, I looked at that 10% increase in the public service expense line. It's not all wages, it also goes to benefits and other things as well. And I saw that he took it from the contingency reserve. Now, the Finance Minister, and few people may know this, was once a financial advisor. He worked for Metropolitan. He's not taking his own financial advice. This is government borrowing from the emergency fund, Benay. This is a problem.
I think in our view, what needs to be done is firstly, we need to really control the increasing salary costs, not just in government sector, but also in private sector, by essentially looking at how people are spending their money. And we need to curtail the availability of easy credit, and that's what's really fueling a lot of the expenditure. For us at Debt Busters, for example, 5% of our clients are people who work for tertiary academic institutions, which is a much higher percent than the percentage of South Africans who work in these institutions, so they're overly represented. And this is just an example. So we think it starts with trying to curtail the expenditure, individual level, then government level, and then reining in these salary increases both in public and private sector, but also allowing people to, lending people responsibly. And the big part of it, Bruce, is of course financial education. People, as my colleague said, do understand they need to pay back. They need to understand the implications of borrowing at young age, and they need to understand the trade-offs that are involved and what it means actually for the rest of their careers. So unfortunately, I don't think there's quick fixes. I'm sure there's specific interventions one could put into place, but I think it will take many years and many levels of education for us to unbundle what's really happened.
Benay, thank you so much. From Intelligent Debt Management Group in Cape Town. In Johannesburg with me this evening, Godfrey Maja, the Chairperson of the Black Management Forum Student Chapter, and Nthato Selebi from the Thuthuka Bursary Fund. A fascinating discussion. Now, as the fees must fall movement gathers momentum, today's students have got to realize, I suppose, that they might not be the beneficiaries of cheaper education. They're certainly not going to be the beneficiaries of free education. They might be planting the seeds for future generations who may be the beneficiaries, in which case the students today would have paid for this education, and then their taxes, when they get the good jobs in the future, will pay for education in the future as well. They might have to pay twice. There'll be more Moneymakers tomorrow. Till then, good night and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.